Thank you. Good morning. According to the program, the title of my talk is Charge. Should this be a noun or a verb? It's probably not the financial meaning that is intended here. Hopefully you've taken care of your tuition. It's probably not the verbal meaning. That would require an exclamation point and would mean something like to rush against or upon with all one's force in a hostile manner. No, I think a more timely definition is meaning 12 as given by the Oxford English Dictionary: a task or duty laid upon one, a commission, trust, or responsibility. Thus, I feel a sense of duty today to share with you part of what I see as your responsibility while you're here at Gordon College. So, why are you here? Why are we all here? What is Gordon College? According to our website, Gordon College is a non-denominational Christian college committed to excellence in liberal arts education, spiritual development, and academic freedom informed by a framework of faith. I want us to think about the liberal arts education part for a few minutes. It appears that much of our concept of the liberal arts may in fact go back to Pythagoras, that slightly eccentric ancient Greek philosopher and mathematician who, according to one legend, upon discovering the amazing theorem that now bears his name, sacrificed an ox in honor of the occasion. Of course, the fact that he was also thought to be a vegetarian is a rather inconvenient detail. But although Pythagoras himself didn't leave behind any written record of his teachings, others wrote about him. And one account describes him as having been perhaps the first person, at least in the Western world, to encourage the concept of a liberal education with the study of first principles, ultimate ideas, involving abstract and purely intellectual investigations. So part of what makes a liberal arts education is the study of abstract and intellectual ideas, not just learning and memorizing facts, but thinking about reasons, causes and effects, relationships, the ways in which two apparently unrelated things are in fact connected if we step back and look at the big picture. So for Pythagoras, it's not just 3 squared plus 4 squared equals 5 squared, but it's also 5 squared plus 12 squared equals 13 squared, and an infinite number of such triangles. Also, as Pythagoras is said to have discovered, if you pluck a violin string, or for him presumably a lyre string, of a certain length, and you hear the note that we know of as A440, and then you halve the length of the string, you cut the length in half, don't cut the string, you get the note exactly 1 octave above, or A880. So we're having a connection between music and mathematics, one of many, which fascinated Pythagoras as it does me, and I hope some of you as well. But now, why did Pythagoras and us here today call it the liberal arts? Another way to translate the phrase liberal education is the study appropriate to a free person. Now, we are all technically free as opposed to being prisoners or slaves, but let's think of this freedom as something positive to be celebrated, not just the simple denial of some sort of bondage. In ancient Greece and Rome, one of the marks of a free person was having the opportunity, the leisure, to study areas of knowledge, not primarily for their usefulness, but more for their fascination and the delight that comes from exploring something simply because it's there. Curiosity, excitement, the yearning to understand, to unravel enigmas and riddles. Refer back to the passage from Proverbs that we heard read. These are desires that God has put into us, and in some sense we're incomplete until we fulfill these God-given urges. Why does a painting move us? Why does a poem speak to us? Why does a piece of music make us weep? And what a loss if we're so busy with those things that we feel bound to do that we miss out on those things that are waiting to be freely enjoyed and discovered. An important part of the liberal arts is an appreciation of art, creativity, beauty. This appreciation and enjoyment may well lead you to exploring your own God-given creativity in music or art or literature. One of my passions is jazz improvisation, both listening to it and attempting to create my own. It seems to me it's a wonderful way of freeing yourself to be both creative and spontaneous. The same sense of creativity, and maybe also spontaneity, can be seen in the ancient Greek poems, the Iliad and the Odyssey, where manuscripts have been discovered that contain quite different versions of parts of the story. It seems that it was okay, in fact, normal for the poet to tell his story in different ways, depending perhaps on his audience or his mood at the time. He could express his creativity in the heat of a performance. This same sort of thing can be witnessed in some of the poetry of the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament. For example, when I read Psalms 14 and 53 side by side, I see subtle variations that might remind me a bit of a jazz musician playing two versions of the same song. This reminds us that the Bible was composed by human writers who were both inspired by God and also empowered to use their full creative faculties. So that now, as we read, we absorb divine truth by means of such literary devices as metaphor, simile, formulaic structure, chiasmus, to name just a few. Some of my colleagues here, and I hope you take courses with them, are passionate about such things. As teachers, we want you to be enthusiastic about your studies and your time here. The word enthusiasm originally meant, in the time of the Greek philosopher Plato, being possessed by a god. Like many other English words, its meaning has unfortunately weakened over the centuries. But how about we revive some of its original force? Let's approach our studies in a state of being possessed by God, with all of the mystery and majesty that evokes. At Gordon College, you have the freedom to explore different areas of knowledge, a freedom that you may never have again to such a degree. So don't waste it. The freedom inherent in the word liberal does not mean freedom to be sloppy, lazy, or careless. It means the freedom to think deeply, to discuss thoughtfully, to read closely, to practice hard, to get into the mind and the heart of the characters in a story that you might be reading. In short, to be the best student that you can be. Liberal, in its good senses here, means the freedom to explore, to follow the trail wherever it may lead. When else are you going to have this same freedom? By the way, we all know some of the reasons people give for wanting to have a good liberal arts education. It makes you sound smart. It gives you a way of impressing people at parties with words such as asymptotic or pre-anti-penultimate. Some of my favorites. But on a more serious note, the benefits are lifelong and profound. How do you measure the value of becoming a better, more thoughtful Christian, a more involved and aware citizen, a more resourceful human being? You might say, I need to get a job when I leave, and that's going to be my focus while I'm here. Indeed, some of you may know without a doubt what you want to do with your life. But I suspect that most of you have more of a vague idea that you sort of like history, maybe mathematics, psychology, and you hope to have your interests strengthened over the next few years. There may even be some of you who have little or no idea of what you want to major in while you're here. And we do give you some breathing room in order for you to make up your mind, as well as some space to change your mind. And I think that breathing room, that space, is part of what we mean when we talk about liberal arts. By the way, how did the word liberal come to have such negative connotations, at least for some people? Well, you'll have to take my course, History of the English Language, where we look at how words change over the centuries. And interestingly, this tells us as much about ourselves as it does about the words themselves. And that's what the liberal arts are all about, the study of humans, the human person, hence the other name, the humanities. This brings me to one of the ways in which Gordon College, and in fact most American colleges, guides you into making sure that your studies are not too narrowly focused while you're here. When I did my Bachelor of Arts degree back in New Zealand a few years ago, quite a few, I took pride in making sure that I only took courses in one department, namely the classics department. I came out with a decent classics degree, but it was, I think, one of the narrowest degrees possible. I've in some sense spent the rest of my life trying to broaden my education. Here at Gordon College, you have the opportunity, or we might say the responsibility, to avoid making that sort of mistake. Gordon gives you what I think is a wonderful opportunity to explore subjects that you may know little about, but may become fascinated by being introduced to. So you may be a chemistry major and you'll take a course in philosophy or sociology or literature. You may be a music major and you'll take a course in math or political science or psychology. And sometimes it happens that students in one major end up changing their major because of a course they took that opened their eyes to a brand new subject area, just as long as it doesn't happen in your last semester. I personally know of some students who have switched their majors after taking a core course in one of these subjects. How would you ever have known about it if you weren't required to take it? So I do encourage you, in fact, I exhort you, don't treat our core program as something to get out of the way, like an annoying bug that's buzzing around your head and needs to be swatted away. Treat it as a not likely to be repeated opportunity to explore a part of God's creation that you may never get the leisure of studying again. The core is at the heart of what liberal arts are all about. Human life is a fragile and a brief thing. As one Greek poet put it some 2,500 years ago, we are but a dream of a shadow. Think about that. We can perhaps compare human life to a musical performance. While the musicians are playing, there is life and joy and power and emotion, but then it ends. You may have a recording of the performance, but a recording can never capture all the life and energy of the live performance. Let's make sure that this live performance, your life, and specifically your time here at Gordon College, is full of life and joy and power and emotion. To quote some lyrics from a song that's become dear to me over the last few months, here's to life and all the joy it brings. And don't forget the world outside. Over these past few days, the country of Libya is in the process of shaking off a tyrannical ruler, and its people are daring to hope that maybe after more than 40 years, they too will be able to enjoy the freedoms that we dare not take for granted. You can hear the cautious joy in some of the voices of the citizens of Tripoli. You're young. Once again, I charge you to immerse yourself in the liberal arts. Relish to the full the freedom you've been given, freedom of thought, freedom of speech, freedom of worship, freedom to explore the whole universe of God's creation and man's God-given creativity, all within the framework of faith. Thank you.